Let's kick it. Atlanta Soccer tonight is live on 92.9 The Game and the Audacy app. I'm Jason Longshore. This is what we do on Tuesday nights. We talk soccer in Atlanta. We talk soccer all over the state of Georgia, all over the Southeast, all over the United States. We'll get into the entire hemisphere. We'll get into the entire planet. It's what we do on Atlanta Soccer tonight. And we're going to cover a lot of ground this episode of Atlanta Soccer tonight because we are less than 50 days away from the Club World Cup coming to Atlanta, 6 games this summer. We're going to talk about Champions Leagues going on all over the world. Teams are already qualified for this edition of the Club World Cup, but for future editions, some of these Champions League events on the different continents worldwide are going to determine who gets there. We're obviously going to talk about Atlanta United. That's going to be the next segment of what happened in Orlando, what can happen differently at home against Nashville, what I'm seeing and what I'm not seeing, and what I'm trying to still figure out along with the rest of you. And the 3-4-3 to close it out. It's 3 local stories, it's 4 headlines, it's 3 things that make me smile about this game that I love so much. That'll close us out. Let's start with Champions League, and let's start with the big game today. PSG and Arsenal. I was really looking forward to this game coming into it, and it honestly didn't really disappoint either. It was an outstanding match between 2 of the best teams in Europe, I think alongside Barcelona, who plays tomorrow. It's it's been a season that I look at Mikel Arteta and I look at Luis Enrique, the managers of the respective teams today. And I really like what these 2 have done in the sense that they both are obviously influenced by Pep Guardiola. And I know the cool thing right now is to be like an anti Guardiola guy and talk about tactics. And I mean, people have said, I ruined the game because he had everybody worried about possession. No, that's nonsense. The majority of top teams in the world are teams that have more of the ball than their opponents. The majority, not all. Not all. There's many different ways to play this game. But the majority of them are in some form or fashion a positional team. Something that you've heard Ronnie Dyla talk about with Atlanta United, something they're trying to get to, something that takes time. Understanding what positional play is. And I see people talk about it in the absolute wrong ways. Positional play as a construct, as an idea, is essentially you want to occupy all of the different zones on the field with one person. You want to spread a team out. That doesn't mean you're stuck in one spot. Some coaches have taken that tack with positional play. Louis Van Gaal, for example, he's had a lot of success in his career, but is more on the rigid side. Others are welcoming to interchange of positions, and Guardiola has done that. Others have. I think we get very hung up on what the starting lineup graphic looks like, for example. Big topic with Atlanta United these days, huh? I can't tell you how many times people come up to me and say that Miguel Almiron should be the 10 when, to be fair, the only time he's ever played the 10 in his career was under Tata Martino in 2017 and 2018, which was here in Atlanta United. And he didn't play it in a typical way in that team. A lot of times he functioned more like a second forward, for example. So it's not about the starting lineup. It's not about those graphics. It's about what you do with it. And I think that's what's so interesting about Mikel Arteta and Luis Enrique. Luis Enrique specifically is one who I think he's been the best coach in the world this year. And his team today got the win 1-0 on the road in London over Arsenal. Ousmane Dembele, who had not been a top guy at PSG. This is a PSG team, remember, that just a few years ago had Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe, and they didn't win the Champions League. Now all of them are gone, and they might win the Champions League. They're the favorite in this semifinal now after the 1-0 win. Dembele scored very early. Now, he did leave the match due to a hamstring issue. Luis Enrique said he's probably a doubt for the second leg. He thinks it's minor, but in a week's time, is he going to be ready to go? Gianluigi Donnarumma, for whatever reason, he get him into England and he goes insane and turns into one of the best goalkeepers in the world. He was great today, and Luis Enrique talked about that. William Saliba of Arsenal said the first 20 minutes we were eaten alive. And that's the element of PSG that I fixate on. It's a team that it's a true team, first off. When you lose Mbappe last year and you previously lost Messi and Neymar from that group, and you find a way as a coach to make them better as a collective, that doesn't always happen. Luis Enrique's done that. And they added Kavicha Kvaratskhelia, the Republic of Georgia national team winger, who's one of the best players in Europe. That gave them a, I don't want to do the air quotes thing. One, it's radio and that doesn't always work. But a star, Kvaratskhelia is not a star in the same realm as Messi and Mbappe and Neymar. He's not. He's very, very good. Napoli fans in Serie A would probably argue that. Very, very good, but maybe a tier down from the superstars, the GOAT kind of conversation that we have. But Luis Enrique took a group of players and has made them better as a collective. And the area where that really shines to me is what they do off the ball. A lot of times when we talk about positional play teams, or we talk about teams that are heavy in possession, or we talk about teams that play in a Guardiola manner, we talk about possession and we talk about keeping the ball and playing keep away, and some teams use it in a slow the game down manner. What Luis Enrique has done, in my opinion, is he's taken the ideas of Guardiola, which were the ideas of Johan Cruyff, which were the ideas of Rinus Michels, the great Dutch masters. He took those ideas and Guardiola put more of a structure around it. Luis Enrique has taken it a step further and I think made this team play in this manner and with this construction, but be more dynamic and maybe more vertical in how they do it. It's a team that can get from back to front really fast. And it's a team that off the ball, they work like maniacs to get the ball back. That's an element of the style of play that I think gets underrated at times. We forget about how the Barcelona teams under Guardiola were so great with their counter pressure at winning the ball back high up the field, and they got goals out of it. But they also just suffocated teams with it. I think PSG has that same kind of factor, and I go back to what William Saliba said. The first 20 minutes we were eaten alive. I mean, a lot of that's on the ball, but a lot of that is when they lost the ball too. They just didn't let Arsenal play. Mikel Arteta is a great manager as well. He interprets the style of play differently than Luis Enrique. I think these are two of the best in the world right now. I think Arsenal fans should have hope that their team can go to Paris and turn this around. It's not going to be easy. I think PSG is the best team in Europe. I think they're the best team in the world right now. That doesn't mean they get it done. They have had, and Luis Enrique talked about it, once they won Ligue 1 a couple weeks ago, they've had a dip in intensity, a dip in form. And that happens to PSG teams because usually they don't really get tested in France very much. So it's hard for them to maintain this top level. They showed it today that they can. Can they do it again another week, especially if Dembele is out? We're going to find out. Arsenal's going to bring everything to that game in Paris. I can't wait for it next week. Really looking forward to it. Tomorrow, the other UEFA Champions League semifinal. It's Barcelona hosting Inter. Remember 2010? You had the Icelandic volcano eruption that grounded flights across Europe. Barcelona had to take a 15-hour bus ride from Spain to Italy. They lost in the game in Italy 3-1. They won the second leg 3-2, but it wasn't enough to get past Inter under Jose Mourinho, who was incredibly defensive, had a red card, had to sit back and defend. He said it's the best loss of his life. It was a very different kind of Inter team than the one that's going to Barcelona tomorrow. They've lost 3 consecutive games right now. First time since 2017. They got knocked out of the Coppa Italia by their crosstown rivals, Milan. Back-to-back defeats in Serie A. Now they're out of the top spot in Serie A. This was a team that was talking about a treble not long ago. They're out of the domestic cup. They're in second place in the league, and they're in a semifinal where they are the decided underdog against Barcelona, who is right there with PSG as the best team in the world at the moment. Barca beat Real Madrid in extra time in the Copa del Rey final to lift their second trophy of the season on Saturday. Talked about a treble with Inter that was on the cards, which isn't anymore. Barca's got a quadruple in front of them that is still on the cards. They lead La Liga by 4 points, and they are the favorite in this semifinal. Lamine Yamal, He's still 2 months away from his 18th birthday. He had 2 assists in that Copa del Rey final. He will be a focal point in the Barcelona attack tomorrow. And Hansi Flick, another one who has taken maybe the previous 10 years of where coaching in the world has been, and Hansi Flick has also found a way to modernize it and is in some ways like Luis Enrique, but in some ways he's got some very different things about his game and what he's done. And having Rafinha and having Lamine Yamal on the wings, he's got dynamos in the 1v1 who can just break teams. And that's what these two have done so many times. It's Atlanta Soccer tonight. I'm Jason Longshore. We're talking about Champions Leagues so far in Europe, but we're going to bounce around to the rest of the continents going on right now. I think this is important as we talk about the Club World Cup coming to town this summer. It gives more context to it, in my opinion. CONCACAF Champions Cup, Vancouver is up 2-0. They're going to Fort Lauderdale to face Inter Miami tomorrow night. Remember, Miami trailed LAFC, and they turned that game around in one of the most epic games in the history of the competition. Well, Vancouver's got a 2-0 lead. They've been the best team in Major League Soccer this season. Can they hold on and do it? Miami rested a bunch of their guys on Sunday. They lost to FC Dallas. Vancouver rested guys and still won on the road in Minnesota. Now they make the trip down to Fort Lauderdale to face Miami. It's hard to bet against Lionel Messi and crew, but these Whitecaps feel like they got something special about them. The African Champions League, Pyramids FC of Egypt, they booked a spot in their first continental final over the weekend. They will face Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa, who will be part of the Club World Cup here this summer. That's going to be a two-leg final that'll start next month. Mamelodi Sundowns beat Al Ahly, a top team out of Egypt. Knock them out. Al Ahly will be here this summer in Club World Cup. The Asian Champions League, a different Al Ahly, the one in Saudi Arabia. They won 3-1 over Al Hilal today in a semifinal. They're going to the final on Saturday in Jeddah. They will play the winner of Al Nasser, Cristiano Ronaldo's team, or Japan's Kawasaki Frontale in the other semifinal. That one's going to be tomorrow. Copa Libertadores is on a different calendar. It is more of the traditional calendar, January to December, as opposed to the European playing calendar. There are 3 rounds through the group stage right now. There's only one team that's perfect, Palmeiras of Brazil. 2 groups that I'm keeping an eye on. Group B, River is leading it with 5 points. Independiente del Valle of Ecuador and Barcelona of Ecuador are on 4 points. Universitario of Peru are on 3 points. That one's wide open halfway through. Group C with Flamengo of Brazil, they're in 3rd place right now, behind Liga de Quito of Ecuador and Central Cordoba, a not big Argentine team. They're leading the group at the moment. Those two are kind of the groups of death at the moment. So Club World Cup's less than 50 days away. I want to play you this clip from our old friend Carlos Bocanegra. I asked him in a media availability what the benefits are to soccer in the United States and specifically executives in the United States who are going to be scouting this competition. Here's what Carlos Bocanegra had to say.
I think it saves a lot of travel and a lot of a lot of expenses on the budget when you don't have to fly all over and spend time in Europe or South America for an extended period of time. So you've got to believe that all MLS is going to be on watch. This is also an opportunity for coaches, like you said, players to show themselves that, hey, there is a potentially an opportunity here when they think the time is right, or to be plucked out of their environment. So it's a huge opportunity for everybody participating here. But yeah, for the MLS teams especially, and executives, that they don't have to travel as far to go and watch the players and the coaches perform. But I think with a lot of the teams, they'll be training at MLS facilities as well. There'll be some interaction, so the executives will have a chance to just, they're not poaching and it's not being nasty. It's just the interactions that you have with other coaches, or probably less so with the players. But executive to executive, I think that's one of the cool parts. At Atlanta United here, we always were able to host other teams, and their executives would come in, or their coaches would come in, and you share ideas, you share some of the challenges, the view on global football at the moment. What's the vision of your club? What's the vision of the club? And so I think that is really cool, and that's one of the great parts about football or soccer, that just the sharing and how the sport brings people together from all over the world, and that's just really a fantastic part about our sport.
It's going to be huge having the Club World Cup here in Atlanta, 6 games this summer, but just having the competition in the United States. I think it's going to have a big knock on effect for the game in this country as we get close to being a year away from the World Cup. A little more on Club World Cup and the game globally in the next segment, but we're going to talk about Atlanta United and a poor outing in Orlando and how things can be better at home against Nashville on Saturday. We'll be back in 5 on Atlanta Soccer tonight on 92.9 The Game and the Audacy app. Welcome back. It is Atlanta Soccer Tonight, live on 92.9 The Game and the Audacy app. I'm Jason Longshore. We've talked about Champions League. Had a really good match today with PSG and Arsenal. I think Barcelona will not maybe entertain us as much in terms of keeping Inter around tomorrow. Who knows? Look, this is what Inter does. They have been a team that has been historically a good defensive team. They're just struggling to score goals at the moment. I don't think they stay in this. I think Barcelona takes control of the tie tomorrow, and then they're just going to have to hold on when they go to Italy. Speaking of a team that is struggling to score goals, that would be Atlanta United. This is a team that has not scored in the run of play in a long time. It has had back to back 3-0 losses, three straight clean sheets. Game before that, your goal was from the penalty spot. It has not been good for Atlanta United, and it's really hard to quantify. I know people will try. I get it. That's the job of everybody who's going to talk about the sport. I get it. This one's confounding to me because on paper, you could argue that this is the deepest, most talented Atlanta United roster that the team has ever had right now. And it's always funny to see how things change. For example, the ratings of how the off-season transfer window that just closed last week, the main transfer window for Major League Soccer, the ratings of how teams did in that were very different going into opening day compared to now, even though a team like Atlanta didn't add anybody else or lose anybody else, but that rating changed. What that tells you is this roster is not the issue in terms of talent. What the front office did in the offseason is not the issue in terms of bringing in talent. You look at the numbers of what they're producing. I mean, going into the Orlando game, it's really weird to see a team that is in the top 10 in terms of shot created actions, in terms of key passes, chances created. And the same team that is in the top 10 in giving up the fewest numbers of shot created actions and chances created not be anywhere near the top 10 in the league. And that's Atlanta United right now. And that when you start to try to figure out why a talented team that has played well enough to create those metrics, and these aren't subjective metrics, these aren't even something like possession that you can judge in different ways. I mean, it's pretty clear when we're talking about actions that create shots. Shots create goals. Kind of hard to score goals without shots. It can be done, but it's just not typical. Um, Chances being created. Again, chances create goals. Sure, you can score without creating a chance, but it's not all that common. And when you're creating a lot of those and you're not giving up a lot of those, it's very weird to be in the position that Atlanta United's in. Now, the Orlando game, you didn't create enough, you weren't dangerous enough, and you weren't good enough defensively after you conceded the opening goal for that trend to continue. And something I said on the call that the feeling has stuck with me ever since Saturday. It's a team that feels like they're playing with a big weight on their back. And that weight, is it pressure? Probably. Is it anxiety about how things are going? Yeah, I think so. Is it fear of how things are going? And fear about what was a promising season walking in the door is not that right now. Yeah, it's a team that feels like they're playing scared in a way. And the Orlando game was where that really felt that way to me. I'm gonna put my hand up. I hate doing this stuff, but it's just where you are right now with this conversation. I do want to clarify a couple things that I feel like are getting lost in translation when this team's being talked about. I talked about it with Chris Thomas earlier tonight. The the mental side of the game is a huge factor in where this team is right now, in my opinion. And that goes back to things like pressure and fear and anxiety. And it feels like a team that is being suffocated by those things. That doesn't always show up on stat sheets. That doesn't always show up in terms of what things look like. I think there's been some narratives out there about the team doesn't care. Stop. Again, just stop. Like, you don't know. You're not in that locker room. If you go and ask the players on record to tell you that and they say that and you got video of it and it's not doctored and they're telling you these things, cool, we'll have that conversation. They're not, and it doesn't look that way in training. And that's something that really stood out to me today watching training. And I asked Brooks Lennon about it. I'm going to play his answer here in just a second. This is a team that in training doesn't look like they do in matches. Something Ronnie Dylas said was they need to find that joy again. They need to find that smile and play with that smile on their face. In training, they do, and it's competitive, but it's also like they're supporting one another. You get some good natured trash talk. It's been good. It's not coming out in games. Ask Brooks Lennon about that, and here's what he had to say after training today.
I think you're right. I think every day we train so hard, and you see, the positive spirits and the work that we put in. And sometimes in games, if we go down, we kind of get a little deflated. So yeah, it's just trying to stay positive on game day, and that's kind of what Ronnie touched on this morning. Is when we go into the bends, we need to feel like that's our home. We can't feel like that's foreign territory. And yeah, building our home with our fans, and creating a good positive vibe in the stadium with the energy that we can get from 60,000 fans. And that should lead to 3 points, and the least we can do is outwork the opponent, like I said.
I think they're going to have to work to create that positive vibe in the building on Saturday. And I hate that that's the case, but that's what happens when a team has lost three in a row and had a couple of bad losses in that on the road. It's the nature of sport, right? It's something that fan bases get frustrated, fan bases get quiet in the stadium at times, fan bases get anxious, fan bases get fearful, fan bases feel that pressure of a season potentially slipping away. Like Brooks said, you have to outwork the opponent, and I think they've done that in general this season. The Orlando game felt like the one that maybe they've been a little paralyzed by that fear in a way. But I think when the narrative is that the team doesn't care or that the team isn't working hard enough, that's that's foolish talk from the outside. That's not the case in this, and that's what's so frustrating about it. This is a team that should be doing more than they are, and it's just not happening at the moment. I asked Brooks as well in media today about, he talked about how he likes to try to keep that positive attitude. I asked him how he avoids a situation like the team's in right now from affecting him negatively. Here's what Brooks had to say.
Just having positive influences around you. I fall back on a lot of people that are in my inner circle, my family, my close friends, and understanding that we're playing soccer for a living. We're not going to war, or we're not doing anything where your life is at stake. And I do, like I said at the beginning, I do this because I love the game. And I enjoy the preparation and the steps it takes to be successful. So that's what it's all about, is how you endure the tough times. And ultimately, in the end, you'll come out on top if you work as hard as you should work.
Brooks a couple times mentioned the hard work, and I think we've seen that in training from this team, and now that's got to, I think, carry over in the right way into the games. I do want to talk about another aspect of it. Our own Joe Patrick asked Saba Lobjanidze, who also spoke after media today, about, does it feel like it's a tactical issue? Is it something about that side of it? Here's what Saba had to say.
I don't think like tactic is a problem. I think like mentally we have to be better, and like soccer is a mental. Like if you're good here, like you can win the game. So like we have to be prepared. Like we have to prepare to have to be here good. And I don't think like tactic is or something is like missing. Like it's not just like we have to be stronger. Stronger mentality, and be positive things. And yeah.
Yeah, stronger mentality is definitely one because it felt like things got away from them after the VAR intervention that led to the opening goal in Orlando, which I wasn't a big fan of, by the way, and spoke about it. I think it felt like an overreach from the VAR, and it does affect the game. It affects a team that's mentally a little weaker, and Atlanta United has been that. But in terms of outworking the opponents, I think at times when you're feeling pressure, when you're feeling anxiety, when you're feeling fearful on the field, you try to do too much. And I feel like that's showing up in a big way with Miguel Almiron right now. I didn't think he played well in Orlando. I think he's struggling to get going. And I look at the touches on the ball in this game against Orlando. Bartosz Szlich and Mateusz Klich had the most touches of any Atlanta United player with 68. McGee was second with 52. Brooks Lennon was the next with 46. I think your two best chance creators in this team are Brooks Lennon and Alexei Moranchuk. They need to be the ones that are on the ball more, especially in the attacking half. And I think you have to create the patterns at times, and players just have to also again try not to do too much in terms of positioning, but also in terms of being on the ball as much in deeper spots. You want them higher up the field. You want Miguel Almiron getting on the end of things going into goal, and you want Moranchuk or Lennon delivering those. You get Latte Lot back this weekend. That will help you. You've got to get started quickly in this game against Nashville, who won 7-2 over Chicago on the weekend. Doesn't make it any easier for Atlanta United. We'll be on the air starting at 1:30. Abe Gordon and Madison Cruz will get you started with the Five Stripes countdown. Mike Conti and I will take over. Kickoff will be right before 3 o'clock, so a long pregame. And then it's Atlanta and Nashville. And then it's the unified match afterwards. Stick around at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for that. Support the Special Olympics team and their helpers. Always a fun time. And that's a team that gets their season started this weekend against Nashville. You can stay for free and watch it, or you can watch it on atlutd.com/live. Coming up next, it's a 3-4-3, three local stories, four headlines, three things that make me smile about this game that I love so much. Coming up next on 92.9 The Game and the Audacy app. Welcome back. It's time to go pretty much around the world in 15 minutes. It's the 343, three local stories, four headlines from all over the world, and three things that make me smile about this game that I love so much. Let's start with the local number one, Gabriel Wise. He is an Atlanta United Academy player who has recently broken into the Atlanta United 2 side in MLS Next Pro. He was named the Rising Star of Match Week 7 for his performance last Wednesday in a 2-2 draw against Carolina Core. Gabriel had a goal and an assist in that one. He was not supposed to start. Remember, last Wednesday, Sean De Silva was traded. I think that trade was announced at about 9 p.m. That was the middle of the second half. Sean De Silva was supposed to start for Atlanta United too. Gabriel Wise was going to come off the bench. So his first start in MLS Next Pro is in a situation where he wasn't expected to when the day started. He wasn't expected to when he arrived at the stadium, and he delivered with an assist on the opening goal and then a goal that put the team ahead. Later equalizer from Carolina, but we say really good performances in this past week. The Twos went on to draw on the road at Cincinnati on Sunday. Two straight draws. They won one shootout. They lost the other one. So a 3-point week for Atlanta United, too. They're next in action on Saturday night in Huntsville, Alabama against Huntsville City. All right, number two. It is Georgia high school soccer tournament action right now. We're in the Sweet 16. Scores from the girls in 4A, 5A, and 6A that played tonight. I'm going to move around a little bit on scores that have been reported as of now. Brookwood, they moved to 18-0 with a 1-0 win at home over Campbell in the Sweet 16 in 6A. Roswell also moved to 18-0. They won big 10-0 at home over previously one loss Lakeside DeKalb in 5A. Harrison, 1-0 win in 6A over North Gwinnett. Walton, 9-1 at home over Mountain View in 6A. North Oconee, they won 2-0 over Northview in 4A. Alexander, they went on the road to Houston County and won 4-1 in the 5A state tournament. Pope, needed penalties to do it, but they got past McIntosh after a scoreless draw in 5A. Pope, the number one team in 5A, won on penalties at home to advance to the Elite Eight. Habersham Central, 5-2 winners at home over Kennesaw Mountain in 5A. Stars Mill, they keep rolling on in 4A, 3-0 win at home over Westminster. St. Pius, 4-0 win at home over East Forsyth in 4A. Lassiter, they went on the road 1-2-0 at Chambly in 5A. Alatoona, 2-2 draw with Pace Academy tonight, but Alatoona won in penalties 6-4. They move on to the quarterfinals. And one of the defending state champions from last year, West Forsyth, 4-1 winners tonight against Hillgrove as they try to defend their state title. Boys in 4A, 5A, and 6A play tomorrow. It's number 3 on the local stories. Here's some of the games that have jumped out to me as I will be watching the scores tomorrow. I'll be watching firsthand. We're going to be in Peachtree City tomorrow night on the SDH Network. A battle of two top 5 teams in the state in 5A. Johns Creek, they travel to face McIntosh. Kickoff is at 7:30. You can listen to our radio call at soccerdownhere.net. Just click listen on the homepage. Also tomorrow night, one loss Dalton. They host Pace Academy in 4A at Harmon Field. One loss Grayson. They host Meadow Creek tomorrow night in 6A. One loss Woodward Academy. They host Sprayberry in 5A tomorrow. Rome is hosting Jackson County in 5A. Duluth and Harrison in 6A. Pebblebrook, the only team that beat Dalton this year, they host Norcross in 6A. River Ridge, they've been ranked as one of the top teams in the country this spring. They only have one loss on their record. They host Chambly tomorrow in 5A. It's another one-loss team, Clark Central. They host Kennesaw Mountain, a state champion from last year. That's in 5A over in Athens. Undefeated Marist, they host North Oconee at 7 o'clock tomorrow in 4A. Lambert won a state title 2 years ago. They host Campbell tomorrow night in 6A. Campbell lost in the state championship game to Kennesaw Mountain last year. And Midtown, just down the street from us at Colony Square, Midtown hosting Blessed Trinity tomorrow night at 8 o'clock in 4A. All right, 4 headlines from around the world, part of the 343. Let's start with Liverpool. Now, I said it in the opening segment. I think Luis Enrique has been the best coach in the world this season. Arne Slot right behind him. He won the Premier League title in his first year with Liverpool. Third manager in Liverpool history to do that. the 5th in Premier League history to win the title in their first season with a club. It's really hard to follow a legend. You typically don't want to be that guy. You want to be the guy who follows the guy. Slot did incredibly well following Jurgen Klopp, who won Liverpool's first top flight title in 30 years in the COVID year in 2020. Klopp was also brilliant in how he set the table for the fan base to support their new manager. I thought Jurgen Klopp on his way out was nothing but class at Liverpool, and it helped Arne Slot be successful. One of the other things that Slot did to be successful is he took his philosophy and how he wants to see his teams play. He adjusted that to the team that he had, that he walked into at Liverpool, and the way that they played under Klopp to find an easy like onboarding process for everybody, and it's worked incredibly well. They started the season so well, Liverpool. They might have dropped off a little bit because of something that they need to work on for next year. We'll get there in a second. Mo Salah, maybe the best season in Premier League history. He is tied for the most goal contributions in a season. He's played 34 games. He's tied with Andy Cole and Alan Shearer, who did it in 42 games. I think he's going to break that record sometime in the next few matches. The club's re-signed Mo Salah. They've re-signed Virgil van Dijk. They will likely have to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold. They're going to have to add some depth to a team that didn't rotate very much this season, and maybe that's why the end of the year wasn't quite as good as the first half of the year. It's also a team in Liverpool. It's going to have big expectations in Europe. They always do with the Reds. Also going to be the favorites to win the league going into next season. They were nowhere near the favorites coming into this year. How they handle that pressure is going to really start to define the Arne Slot era at Liverpool. Number 2, looks like the Carlo Ancelotti era at Real Madrid is done, but things have gotten complicated over the last few hours. It looked like at the start of the day, it was all set for Carlo Ancelotti to leave Real Madrid and take over the Brazilian national team job. Brazil has wanted Carlo Ancelotti for over a year now. Looked like they were going to get him. However, I wish I had Philip Dujic. However, on the mic like a VAR. Carlo Ancelotti, the verbal agreement between him and Brazil has been done. But Real Madrid, not happy about how things have been going on. They don't want to pay any exit fee for Ancelotti's salary. He's under contract through next year. Brazil doesn't want to pay any money to get him out of his contract. Brazil, according to reports, is now going to look at Jorge Jesus, who is manager of Al Hilal. Brazil wants to get somebody in before the June World Cup qualifiers. That means whoever the manager is that they try to get in needs to be out of their club at the end of the season. Well, Real Madrid and Al Hilal are playing in the Club World Cup here in this country this summer. How is this going to work? Especially when you don't want to spend any money to get people out of contracts. That's probably not going to work very well. On the Madrid side, they've been linked with bringing in Xabi Alonso of Bayer Leverkusen. That's probably the favorite in terms of who would replace Carlo. One of the former legends of Real Madrid. He won a Bundesliga title, breaking up the Bayern dynasty. Didn't have as great of a year this year, but he's punched above his weight at Leverkusen by far. He would make a lot of sense. However, Jurgen Klopp's name has been floated in the Spanish media. Some board members at Madrid are hoping that he will be considered and have reportedly sounded him out on it. He's currently in a director role of Red Bull's soccer clubs globally, including the New York Red Bulls. So the telenovela includes Real Madrid, the Brazilian national team, Bayer Leverkusen, Al Hilal, Red Bull soccer all over the world, Carlo Ancelotti, Xabi Alonso, Jurgen Klopp, Jorge Jesus. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot to try to deal with in this telenovela, and there's probably a few more twists before Madrid makes a decision, Brazil makes a decision, Carlo makes a decision, Xabi Alonso makes a decision, Jorge Jesus makes a decision, Jurgen Klopp makes a decision. Yeah, welcome to the global drama of the game. Number 3 on the headlines. I'm sure we'll be talking about that drama next week. Number 3, the UEFA Women's Champions League. Arsenal's women turned around a 2-1 deficit from the home leg in France. They went to France. They give their men's team hope, who has to try to do this now next week. They won 4-1 at Lyon after losing 2-1 in the home leg. They advanced to the UEFA Women's Champions League final, where they will face Barcelona. Barcelona's going for the three-peat. They're going for 4 titles in the last 5 years, and they look like major favorites to do it. They dominated Chelsea 4-1 in each leg of the semifinal, 8-2 on aggregate. Barcelona's a monster, and they're trying to do something that no club has ever done. Ever, ever, ever. So their senior youth team won the UEFA Youth League on Monday. They beat Trabzonspor of Turkey. So the senior youth team has the UEFA title. Their women now in the final trying to get the UEFA title. Their men in the semifinal. They play tomorrow against Inter, trying to get the UEFA title. No club has ever won the men's, the women's, and the youth in the same year. Barcelona on pace to do that. Even with all of their telenovelas. And there's a whole bunch of them, and there will probably be a whole lot more headlines about Barcelona's chaos between now and the start of next season. We'll talk about it here on AST. On the field, can't really argue with it. They could have all the UEFA titles by the end of the year. Number 4 on the headlines, Wrexham. A lot of people have watched. Welcome to Wrexham. They have done history now. They have become the first club in English history. I know they're Welsh, but they play in the English league, so follow with me. They've won 3 straight promotions. They've ensured now that they will finish in the top 2 in the EFL League One, so they will move up. They'll be in the English Championship, the second division, next season. Now, no team has ever risen from non-league, the Conference League, to the top flight in successive seasons. It has never been done. So being outside of the 4th division, going to the top flight, it has never in the history of the sport been done in England. Swansea got from the 4th tier to the top flight in 5 years in 1977 to 1982. Luton Town, they climbed from non-league to the top division over a 10-year spell. Be completely uncharted territory if Wrexham can advance out of the championship next year to get to the Premier League. Remember, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought the club for $2.5 million in 2021. Felt like it was a joke at that point. It's not a joke anymore. They're going into the second division in England, and they are in a situation where if they finish after a playoff or if they advance and finishing in the top 2, moving into the biggest league in the world. They're that close after a $2.5 million lottery ticket that they bought. Now, the jump to the championship is huge. I think the jump from conference to 4th division and 4th division to 3rd division, much smaller jumps. The jump from 3rd division to 2nd is a big jump because you need Premier League level talent to get past clubs that were just relegated from the Premier League, like Leicester, for example. Can you recruit that in the offseason while maintaining the culture of the club, which has been an, all for one for all kind of idea? It's not easy. It's going to be very difficult for this group now. I think the job has gotten that much harder, but what they've done, 3 straight promotions, absolutely incredible at Wrexham. Really cool story. 3 things that make me smile, in addition to Wrexham. 3.5. I'm smiling about Wrexham. Number 1, their official match in competition, their first ever game. The U.S. women's futsal national team won tonight in the CONCACAF Championship 7-0 over Honduras. Peachtree City native and Stars Mill graduate Carly Banks was the first ever captain in official competition for the U.S. women's futsal national team. Sarah Martin had a hat trick. They play tomorrow night against Costa Rica. You can watch it at ussoccer.com. Number 2, I talked about it earlier in the 3-4-3, the excitement building around the state for the high school state tournament. Seeing teams like Habersham Central, seeing teams like Toombs County, seeing teams from all over the state of Georgia make runs in the tournament. It's my favorite thing about how the game has grown in this state over the years. It's so cool. And number 3, random one. It's International Dance Day around the world. My favorite all-time goal celebration that included a dance was Roger Mila from Cameroon in the corner of the 1990 World Cup with the corner flag. He said it was totally spontaneous. He didn't plan it. It just happened after scoring a goal, the oldest goal scorer in the history of the tournament. Totally joyful. One of the great moments in World Cup history. I don't know. Maybe Atlanta United needs to find a way to have a dance with the corner flag on Saturday. Fingers crossed that somebody gets to break out a Roger Mila dance. We'll be on the air at 1:30 for pregame coverage. Abe Gordon, Madison Cruz will get us started. 2:55 is the kickoff time. Mike Conti and I will take over Atlanta United and Nashville SC. After that, Atlanta United's unified team hosting Nashville, probably about 5:30 is the start time there. Stick around and watch it if you're in the stadium. You can watch it at atlutd.com/live if you can't stay in the building and watch it. Myself and Madison Cruz, along with John Nelson and Joe Freihofer, will have the call for you there. And I'll be back next week for another edition of Atlanta Soccer Tonight. Thank you for